How frustrating is it to spend 45, 50 minutes on the phone with someone, get to the end, you give them quotes, and they tell you, oh, that's just not enough coverage. And they say thanks anyway, they disappear, and now you've lost the sale and totally wasted your time. If you're just now finding this channel, my name is Dana Neeson. I'm the telesales manager for Tailored Legacy. We run a telesales team for final expense insurance across 17 states, and I am here to help you have better, more elevated conversations. So let's get started. Before we talk about how to prevent the objection of that's not enough coverage, I want you to try to figure out why you think you're getting that objection in the first place. And 9 times out of 10, I might even go as far as saying 10 times out of 10, the reason you're getting that objection is because you did a poor job in discovery and you did not identify that they're only looking for final expense insurance. It is critical that you get an understanding of what the customer is looking for before you start talking about what you do. And just because you only sell final expense insurance, you can't make the mistake that that's the only thing that the customer wants to. Now, you may not only sell final expense insurance. You might have a variety of types of insurance that you can offer your clients, and therefore this problem may not even be an issue for you. But I still think it's important that you hear this video, you understand this training, because this is also about educating our customers and providing them with really good options and information based on what they need, not based on what they want. Really good question to ask your customer is, what expenses are you mostly concerned about this protection paying for when you do pass and it's time for your family to use it? And then you shut up, right? A big mistake a lot of agents make is they'll ask a question similar to that, and then they'll immediately follow it up with a multiple choice answer. Is it for funeral costs? Is it for mortgage? Is it for bills? Is it for debt? Like, there's no reason to give them any of that information. So once your customer tells you something to the effect of, well, I'd like $50,000 to maybe pay off debt, leave money to my family, and also pay for the funeral. Just because you hear funeral, you can't now isolate and put your customer in a box of, great, they only want funeral insurance. That's not going to work. And that's the biggest mistake you're making. So how do you go about helping your customer figure out exactly what they need, and then letting them understand that there's nothing wrong with getting a larger policy that's affordable, that will take care of these other expenses? You just may not be able to help them with that. And to provide them with the education that they might need 2 different policies for 2 different purposes is exactly where you have to go in order to navigate this conversation. And a lot of this takes place when you're in your education portion. So I break down the presentation, I should say, into 3 different sections. This is just that they might need 2 different policies for 2 different purposes is exactly where you have to go in order to navigate this conversation. And a lot of this takes place when you're in your education portion. So I break down the presentation, I should say, into 3 different sections. This is just to make it a lot easier. So your first section is discovery. You have to understand why your customer is on the phone with you, what they need the insurance to cover, who is it supposed to protect, what expenses do they need it to go towards, get them to start thinking about their situation, how it's affecting them, what will happen if they do nothing, right? Yada, yada, yada. Okay, second part is education and problem awareness and problem solving. So in your education portion, this is your moment to help them understand what they need, because people don't know really much about insurance at all. They might think they do, but you know as well as I do, the reality is that people don't know a whole lot, and they're really relying on you. They're relying on us to give them the recommendations so that they can do the right thing, so that they can protect their family. This is just to make it a lot easier. So your first section is discovery. You have to understand why your customer is on the phone with you, what they need the insurance to cover, who is it supposed to protect, what expenses do they need it to go towards, get them to start thinking about their situation, how it's affecting them, what will happen if they do nothing, right? So if I had someone who was wanting a $50,000 policy and they weren't going to want to get anything less than that, I would approach it like this. First of all, I would ask them, do you understand the difference between all the different types of insurance out there? Universal life, whole life, term life. I would just ask them, has anyone kind of gone through that with you? And 9 times out of 10, they'll say no. Can you explain it? So I'm first going to start explaining what term insurance is. And I'm going to explain it that it provides a large amount of coverage, like 40 or 50,000, for a small, affordable payment. Now, for those of you watching this video, I want to make sure that you understand that the people that we speak to on our team, they're all pretty much 65 and older, a lot of them in their 70s. And so to get a whole life policy at 65 or 70 years old for 50,000, 100,000 for people who are living on a fixed income, the reality is it's not going to be affordable. So you have to set the expectation that the only affordable policy that they will most likely be able to get for that much coverage will be term. It will be temporary. Okay. And you have to say, now there's nothing wrong with that. I tell them all the time, there's nothing wrong with getting a temporary policy for that much coverage, as long as you have the right expectation. Then I'll ask them, you shared with me earlier that you also wanted some of this money to pay for your funeral costs. Is that right? So what would happen then if you do live another 10 years or more and you outlive this policy? What happens then? And then I shut up again, right? Because I want them to start thinking about their decision-making process, that it's not just about this large policy for this monthly payment. It's about what this policy is going to do for them, and is it going to give them the ultimate outcome and result that they're looking for? I'm trying to help them through the thought process without me telling, right? I'm actually having them actively participate in this critical thinking moment. So they might say something like, I don't know, or they might say something, well, I'll just reapply, right? And that will give me an opportunity to say, well, you could, but a lot of insurance companies, won't give you any more once you turn 80. And if they do, it might be unaffordable, or if your health were to change, you might get declined. Okay, so I'm giving them all these different options. So the wheels are spinning, the wheels are spinning. Now I'm going to come out and introduce what whole life is. Everybody who's watching this video should know how to explain what whole life insurance is. I'll also follow it up with saying, now these are typically the types of policies people get to make sure funeral costs and final expenses are paid for, because it's permanent, it never cancels. Does that make sense? Yes. Okay. So we've talked about what term is. We've talked about what whole life is. Is it okay if I make a recommendation? They'll say yes. I know we started this call where you were wanting to get 50,000 in coverage, and I'm sure we can still find a way to accomplish that for you. But what I'm probably going to recommend is that 40,000 of that 50,000, we look for a affordable term policy that will probably last you about 10 or 15 years. But you have to know that if you outlive that, it's going to cancel. But then I'll follow up and say, now, do you think the debt that you have now might be different in 10 or 15 years from now? Are you working to try to pay that down? Right? So, but it'll give them the protection for the 10 or the 15 years that they are worried. And we have some referral partners that we are, giving some of these clients to help them with their term insurance needs. And then I'll follow it up with, now, what I would recommend is that if you're comfortable separating the two, right, I can help you with a small, affordable, permanent policy that will just take care of your funeral costs, your final expenses. It'll never go up in price. It'll never cancel at any age. So if you do outlive that big term policy, your family will guarantee to be left with this. Does that sound fair? Now, they have to tell you, yes, that sounds fair. And that way you have permission to continue because you know, and your customer knows, the only thing you're going to be talking about now is a small, affordable burial policy. So if you make the mistake of someone saying, yeah, I want 50,000, I want 100,000, I want this, I want that, and you don't address it, you don't isolate it, you don't help them understand what they need, give them recommendations, and then tell them, hey, this is what I can help you with. Are you comfortable with that? And I'll help you find someone that will take care of this. If you fail to do that, you will guaranteed get an objection at the end that says that's not enough coverage, and you will lose the sale. That is it, guys. That is all you have to do in order to get someone's expectations from here down to here. You've met them where they're at. They understand where you're going. They've agreed to move forward. There is no way now that they can tell you it's not enough coverage because you've set the expectations from the beginning.